What's up, YouTube? Welcome to Trading Tactics. It is good to be back talking to y'all. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today in this video is we're going to go over the SPX. I'm going to want to try to do this once a week and probably update it midweek, just getting a feel for what the charts are doing and getting some ideas on how we can set up some trade plans. Now, the idea of this is not to predict what the SP 500 is going to do, but rather just set up some great trading plans, some great trading opportunities, and some key levels that we can watch throughout the week that we may or may not want to react to depending on what happens whenever price gets there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll the intro and then we'll get right off into it. All right, so here we are. We got SPX pulled up. Now, it doesn't matter if you're going to be trading SPY or if you're trading ES or MES on the future side. Me personally, I trade the futures market. I don't fool around much with equities anymore. And whenever I do, it's usually on the dividend side of things with some large cap stocks, kind of boring stuff. But for my day trading and for my overnight swings, 3-day swings, and things like that, I'm almost exclusively trading the MES, the micro mini SP 500 futures contracts. And right now I'm focused on the December contracts if you're interested in that. I have the SPX weekly chart pulled up right now, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the volume on so we can just kind of get a look at what's been going on with volume. And you can see that volume hasn't been all that impressive. It hasn't been doing anything crazy. It's been trucking along at a pretty much an average pace, an average clip for ever since the COVID lockdown period that you can see back over here. So there's not a lot to be seen here on the weekly chart with volume. Let's actually go ahead and focus on price action. So the first area that just kind of jumps out to me is going to be a horizontal line work coming out of this area right here. And the reason being is because this was the last major support that was upheld whenever this market was uptrending. Okay, so over here, the market's clearly in an uptrend on the weekly chart, very bullish, very sustained. And then it had this pullback, and this was the last pullback that was actually really held by price. And what I mean by that is prices actually came up to this point here, and they pivoted back down and they held. They held the swing high as a support or resistance. Prices pushed up again one last time, and from there they've been falling. So if we use that objectively, and what I like to do for pullbacks is I need to see at least two candles of the opposite color with higher highs. So in this one, I'd be looking for blue candles with higher highs, two of them specifically or more. And we don't get that here. So I'm not looking at that as a major pullback at all. I am looking at this one with a lot of interest. And then, of course, going to where we are now. So this is objectively identified, in my opinion, as being in a downtrend. And we can annotate that just to make sure that we keep our directional bias correct as we're going through the rest of the charts. Now, getting a little bit more local with this, we'll move that dude out of the way here, and we'll focus on the actually weekly bar. For those of you who practice strat, you ought to be pretty excited about this broadening pattern. Okay, this is definitely going to be an outside bar. It's a bearish engulfing pattern. However you want to label it, depending on what your discipline and how you trade, that's going to make a little bit of a difference. But for the most part, the interpretation is the same, that this is a very, very bearish signal. So a go line for this to me is going to be, let's actually use the horizontal ray so we can get some price targets out here. But a go line for me is going to be right there at about 38.37. Now, granted, this is SPX. I'm going to have to convert all this over to a futures chart, but the setup is pretty much the same across all of them, not enough to really matter. A break line on that is going to be 41.19. So I'm going to be looking for prices to pretty much come down out of this area and break out and retest. So I'm looking for this entry here is what I would be most interested in, would be prices to come out of this area. And it may take several weekly bars for it to come back up and retest, but that's the entry that I want specifically to target this area down here at about 36.36 on the SPX chart. Now, we know that there's only a couple of things that price can do whenever it comes to a support or a resistance level. There's literally only two things it can do. It can either reject off of it and bounce back, which would give us an opportunity to fade this back to the center line, or it can break through it. Okay, so we're going to be looking for signals of both. I'm not naive enough to think that I can only take bearish positions in this market because it's an overall downtrend. That's just where my higher probability is with trend bias, trend direction. For the most part, though, I am going to be looking for those bearish opportunities and bearish plays, and I would happily consider taking short positions in the future on the future side of things up around these levels as well. But for the most part, I am going to be entertaining the thought of possibly going long on a market fade, targeting the center line between this this high and this low from this outside bar. Outside of that, I'll be looking for that breakout and that retest to take this market down, target this level, and potentially beyond. Now, there are some interesting levels that haven't been tested yet on the weekly chart, more specifically on the daily chart. We're going to look at some of those as we go back down. I know one of the things that I rely on in my trading is that I love to see the market going back and retesting an area. For example, we have this right here. It's not a direct hit, but it's really close from an important point back in the past here on the weekly chart. We could bring up anchored VWAPs and some other tools, and we could get some really precise analysis and trade plans going on here. But for the most part, the setup's going to be good enough. I do want to bring this down into the daily and just kind of scroll back a little bit and show you this point of consolidation that I am watching. This area has the top of it has been tested over here, close enough. Okay, and it may come down and try to get a direct hit here in the future. We're not sure about that. We'll have to see what develops. This area has been cleared, and obviously this low here was cleared with a little bit of price action on the daily. So there's no real strong areas that haven't been untested except for this right here. There's some consolidation in this area that lasted several days, and the market just hasn't come back down to this area. Does that mean we're destined to see the S&P 500 back in the 2,800 price range? Well, I don't know. It's not our job to predict the market. It's our job to react to it appropriately and get our profits from what the market gives us data-wise. That's what we're going to be doing as a technical and tactical trader. So I'm looking for that opportunity to take a breakout from here and at least test the lower limits of this range. And of course, the pre-COVID high would be an interesting target in this area as well. So these are all some key levels that you can look at in your charts and just have marked up and see what happens if price gets there. See if it gives you a trigger. If it doesn't, or if it wants to reverse and go the other way, well, that's fine. We can react to that too. The most important thing about this, though, is to have a good, solid trading plan and to have some things identified objectively that make sense, that you're familiar with and you know how to trade. If you need help learning how to trade some of these signals, how to set up your chart, how to identify key levels of support, resistance, consolidation, and balance and discovery zones and things like that, then please feel free to visit my website. I'm going to have that in the link or in the description below, along with a chance to join our free email list where I'll send out trade opportunities based on the daily, the hourly chart, things like that, where you get to swing trades, day trades. Not a lot of marketing in the emails. I try to keep it pretty content rich. With that being said, great to be back, YouTube. Love seeing y'all again. Please smash that like and subscribe down below. Y'all take care. Have a great weekend. Good luck in your trading.